Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm Ukrainian Canadian. Today is December 8th, 2024, and let's get to the news and updates happening in the world, shall we? And of course, we have to cover first what happened in Syria. It's a very historic moment because the Assad regime has been toppled, and in less than 2 weeks, it's pretty much game over for Assad. He officially fled Damascus overnight. He probably flew to Moscow, Tehran, it doesn't matter. He has lost the civil war. And this is good news overall because he was a brutal dictator of Syria. He did not shy away from bombing hospitals, imprisoning children, torturing innocent civilians and the opposition, and using chemical weapons. And of course, he was backed by Putin, who also disregarded airstrikes on the civilian population. So this is overall very good news for all of us. The fact that the Syrian regime is gone and Putin has been weakened. And here I'm going to talk about the implications for Putin, which are very important, and good news for Ukraine as well. But it remains to be seen how peaceful this transition will be. I'm hoping this is going to be a new peaceful chapter for Syria. But again, it remains to be seen. Time will tell because there's a lot of ideological clashes between the rebels here and the Kurds and Turkey that's also at play here in the United States. So I'm hoping that this time is going to be more of a peaceful transition, and Syria will try to repair its scars and its wounds. But let's talk about the implications for Putin here, because there's several, and they're all very good for Ukraine. First of all, we need to talk about Russia losing its access to the Mediterranean port of Tartus in the coastal area of Syria. This is really important. Putin also lost several air bases that were crucial for his African operations, where he was able to extract wealth, resources, and have geopolitical influence in Africa. And these resources and the money that he was able to earn from his African operations were fueling or driving his war in Ukraine right now. So that is really important. It's also a final nail in the coffin for Russia's global superpower status. Russia has displayed its inability to wage a war across multiple different countries, especially one that is far away from Russia, or at least it's not a neighboring country of Russia. There's also been a weakening of Russia's position at the negotiating table as Trump is forming his foreign policy, and I'll talk about it in my next slide. But that's also very important. This could not have happened at a worse time for Putin as he tries to display his power and influence to Trump. And last but not least is the embarrassment and anger within the Kremlin elites and military. They poured in billions of dollars into Syria. Also, the military was involved in retaking Syria and the sacrifices that the Russians had to make to retake Aleppo and other big cities. And they lost it in less than 2 weeks. The entire country just fell apart like that. So that is really, really Russia's Afghanistan moment, and a huge embarrassment because everybody right now in Russia is talking about it. As much as the Kremlin is going to avoid this topic, it's too big to hide. It's too big to not talk about. So it's not talked about in Russia, and that's really embarrassing for Putin. That the Russians thought that Syria was in the bag, that it would never fall apart as long as Russia's there. Apparently not. And that's really important as well, that Putin has been weakened in the eyes of the regular, ordinary Russian. That's extremely important. So you guys can let me know in the comment section what you think about the implications. But if I have some last comments here is I'm hoping that for the Syrian people, it's going to be a new peaceful chapter, at least fingers crossed. Now let's talk about the meeting between Trump and Zelenskyy in Paris, which was facilitated by the president of France, Macron. And I wanted to talk about my position here, what I think Trump will do on after January 2025. There's a few positive signs that I've taken away from this meeting. One, you can see that Trump, and perhaps it's a coincidence, I don't know, but to me, it's the very first time that I've seen Trump actually wear a yellow tie, but he wore a suit to the colors of Ukraine. Is it a coincidence knowing that he met with Zelenskyy yesterday with Emmanuel Macron, who is a pro-Ukrainian politician? I don't think so, but it could be. Who knows? You can let me know in the comment section what you think. And also, Trump tweeted yesterday a very embarrassing, I guess, message to Putin, throwing shade at him. He essentially wrote here, so there was no reason for Russia to be there in the first place in Syria. They lost all interest in Syria because of Ukraine, where close to 600,000 Russian soldiers lay wounded or dead. Russia and Iran are in a weakened state right now. And that's also a very important message to Putin. I know that you're weak right now. I know that you've lost Syria. I know that you've lost 600,000 soldiers. And it's actually not even the right number. It's even more. It's 750,000 Russian casualties. And probably Zelenskyy corrected Trump after this when he met with him. And he also acknowledges the weakened state of Russia and Iran overall. So that's really important. So I think that as Trump starts forming his foreign policy right now, he's surrounding himself with his advisors, the people that he has appointed within his administration, like Tim Walz, Mr. Kellogg, Marco Rubio, who are more or less pro-Ukraine. They're not anti-Ukraine, that's for sure. But they have been to Ukraine, most of them. They have visited Kiev. They have talked with Ukrainian soldiers, so they understand very well what's going on. And I think they're going to be conveying a pro-Ukraine message to Trump. And Trump is forming this foreign policy. And it's really important right now how he is influenced to shape this position. He's met several times with Zelenskyy. And I'm sure that Zelenskyy has been able to convey that message. He has met with other world leaders that are pro-Ukraine. So I think that he's being influenced in a positive way, that he needs to support Ukraine because it's within his interest to have Ukraine come out on a stronger position than Russia. To me, I think it's becoming more and more evident. I could be wrong here. It's not a certainty, but I think that we're seeing the positive signs. And yes, there will be some, moments where he's going to say something that's anti-Ukraine, this and that, but I think that his position is not going to shift. He's not going to just pull the plug from Ukraine and say, that's it, no more help, forget about my help. I'm not going to get involved here and let Russia do what they want. I think that it's not going to be like that. And Trump is realizing that it's not as simple as he thought it would be with regards to shaping this foreign policy about Ukraine. And one last thing I want to mention here before I end this video, two actually, but one is, and I think it's important that Zelenskyy mentioned that and admitted the Ukrainian deaths for the very first time, I think in 3 years. He confirms that the Ukrainian deaths within the military fighting this war are around 43,000, which is the very first time we've heard that. So this, if we're calculating with the losses, the wounded, the missing in action, this brings the Ukraine casualty figure to about 200,000, which in my opinion is more or less realistic. You can let me know if you think it's more, if it's less, but I think that this is within kind of the number range that I was expecting personally. And it's also important that after 3 years, Zelenskyy talks about it and at least gives us a number, because we can't ignore the fact that Ukraine also has losses every single day, but at least it's way less compared to Russia. We know that Russia is heading towards the 800,000 number very soon in the next few weeks, and this gives us a 4-to-1 advantage for Ukraine. So for every 4 Russian soldiers that are killed or wounded or missing, there is 1 Ukrainian soldier. But it's unfortunate to see that it's still a pretty big number for Ukraine. These are some of the best people. And so, it's still very sad for me to hear about, the military deaths and the losses for the Ukrainians. But we understand that Ukraine needs to continue fighting. Russia is not going to be benevolent. If Ukraine lays down its weapons, you really think Russia is going to be benevolent and say, oh, okay, let's forget about our differences. Let's shake hands. I'm going to be nice to you now. Forget about it. Putin has displayed his genocidal ideology against Ukraine. He's going to try to destroy the Ukrainian people. It's going to be a new genocide. And so this is why the Ukrainian people cannot stop fighting, unfortunately, until Russia is defeated, or at least the war is frozen in a state that allows Ukraine to rebuild itself. And there are security guarantees that Russia's never going to do this again. That's really important, right? And so far, we haven't seen a single sign that Putin is willing to compromise. So this is why Trump also understands the importance of forcing Russia to be ready to compromise as well. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think about any of these events, about Trump and Zelenskyy, about the situation in Syria. Is there anything else I missed with regards to the implications for Mr. Putin? Let me know. So thank you for your support, and I will see you guys in the next one. Slava Ukraini!